So if you look at overall India ecosystem from a blue-collar lens point of view, today we have roughly 450 million people in the entire ecosystem, right? They start from formal economy to semi-formal to agri-tech, mom and pop shop and so on. And this is growing rapidly, right? When we believe that it will touch 500 or more over next few years, right? And this significant movement is also happening with a significant jump in income of those individuals, right? Be it family income or be it individual income. Individual income could be because of the increase in salary, wages, and so on. Family income because more and more people are working. But it's also driven by the fact that the aspirations of people are growing as we are moving in the society and the economy, right? Aspirations are growing, and hence people are looking at new opportunities, learning, earning opportunities higher than what they are getting today, utilization of their active hours. So if I'm working 8 hours and I'm making, let's say, $15,000, how can I work 12 hours and earn something more? So there are, all those aspirations are coming into the ecosystem. And this is the change which is bringing the change in the earnings of the individuals as we see, right? And what we also saw is the demand for the formalized blue-collar ecosystem grew rapidly over last 2 years, especially during the COVID time. And we believe that by 2030, right, which is 5-7 years from now, this demand will grow further by roughly 51 million people in the entire formal economy. It's driven by different factors, right? Different industries. E-commerce is one of the major driving force for it, right? Each one of us are now ordering. There are new companies coming up, be it typical e-commerce to food delivery to grocery to other things. But it's not limited to that, right? It is also growing in the traditional manufacturing industry, right? That things are moving. I mean, China plus one will have a huge potential towards that direction, right? There are a lot of companies who are talking about moving from China their operations to India, and that will have a positive impact in terms of the numbers that we are looking forward to, right? Facility and security is growing, right? That is also because, one, the people are coming back to work, and the second thing is that as the economy grows, there is new manufacturing or facility and other things that comes up, obviously it starts growing rapidly as well, right? So we see this happening in every sector as we go on. There are certain areas which are driving it more than others for sure, but it is happening rapidly, right? What we also see is that there are certain patterns which have changed, right? When I was young, we used to see, there'll be these corners, and you can still see it in some parts of the world, that there are these corners where people would come in the morning and you go and find the plumbers and the electricians and others. And this is completely shifting towards a digital world, right? People now have a smartphone. You actually create a demand. Somebody picks up the demand, comes and delivers the job, right? That shift has started happening. That started actually with Olas and Ubers and others, but is happening very, very fast with the invent of technology driven by COVID now, right? So everyone is looking at how can I be on the technology, right? If you look at the penetration of mobile and the smartphone in this ecosystem is very, very high, right? So everyone is moving towards that direction. What is also happening, if you look at on the left box on the top, there's the traditional guys, right? I'm working as a facility and the security. I'm working as a full-time job somewhere between 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. But I also have the aspiration to do something part-time. Might be on a Saturday or a Sunday. Might be the 2 hours or 4 hours that I have extra, right? How can I increase my income every day, right? And that is the change that we also see. That's where the gig economy is also coming in, right? I need a delivery boy because the food demand or the pizza demand between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. is high, and I have done my job at 6 p.m. and I can be a delivery boy later in the evening, right? And I can also potentially earn some more money. So that's the shift which is happening. And we think this change will continue. And potentially today, if you look at the gig economy across India, we estimate in a formal sector, it's around 1.1, 1.2 crore people that could go up to 9 crore people, 90 million people by 2030, right? So there is a huge technology shift that will happen from utilization of resources just in time, right? And these changes, or this change that is happening, will also demand certain behavioral change that we will speak about in a while. Right. So if you look at how things have moved already, 2021, 80% smartphone users. 2022, already the highest number of internet users that we have. We were doing a research work in 2019 and 2020, just before COVID, to figure out that is it a good idea to create a mobile-based learning solution for the blue-collar workers, right? And one of the biggest questions was that do they have a smartphone to really digest the content, right? If you do not have the content, or you have the content but you do not have a smartphone to digest it, then you cannot distribute it. It is not scalable, right? We were super surprised that everyone that we spoke to had a smartphone. They might be having a feature phone as well, but they definitely had a smartphone, right? Even if you are not employed, they had a smartphone. And that is where we started working on our digital learning program, focusing on the blue collar. How can we help them grow in their career ladder? And you see that in a short span of time today, we have 4 million learning hours being consumed by our users, which has helped a few million people over last 1.5 years, right? So this is a rapid shift that is happening, of course, driven by technology and the data or the smartphone which is there, right? What is also going to happen is that there are people who are doing different education, right? For example, typically, if you look at the blue collar, in our mind we get that it is might be 10th standard or 10 plus 2 max or below 10th standard, and this is where the entire journey starts, and this is why they get into. But a lot of people who also want to do part-time jobs and undo things. So there are a lot of degree holders. So this is becoming irrespective of what I have learned. It is driven by what can I earn as well and utilize my time, right? And there's a dignity of labor which is coming in, kicking in, which is very, very important for all of us to realize, right? So it is not considered if I'm a Ola driver, then my dignity is less than somebody who is a salesperson, right? It's the same thing that people have started realizing, because it's an entrepreneur feeling that comes along with that. And this is where the empowerment can be given to an individual. So this is a very important shift which is happening for us to realize, right? And we are all creators of that economy. So for us, it becomes very important that we understand this shift or tectonic shift which is happening, right? This is just to give you a perspective that why gig is very crucial in this entire landscape, right? There are certain countries which are far ahead of us. My first trip to Germany as a software engineer was in '97, right? That's 25 years back. And we used to call an individual for cleaning our house once in a week on a Sunday and pay those days $40, right? Of course, it was not 80 rupees that time, but $40 we used to pay. I think it is still $40 because economy has not grown in that country. But we used to do that, right? That was the gig economy. They were used to it. And when the technology came, it was not creating a new economy. It just the shift started happening from the phone call to a mobile app, right? In India, we are still moving from that direction. People always felt being a secure job is the most important thing. If I'm earning 15,000 and there is a guarantee that I'll get 15,000, people were excited about it, right? Because of the manpower, there's too much of supply at times. Of course, the demand is never met because of unskilled supply, unfortunately. But there is the supply, right? And people thought a secure job is the most important thing. That is shifting now. People are super excited that there is an opportunity. And we, as a creator of that economy, can think about how can we leverage technology, bring more efficiency into our entire process, because this, at the end of the day, as an employer, saves us cost, right? Every time I have somebody doing my gig task, I actually save money, right? There was a company I was talking to, I can't name, and it's a customer of ours. They employ thousands of people, 9 hours a day, pay the salary for 9 hours, but the utilization is only for 5 hours. What we have done, we actually converted most part of it into gig economy. Now the utilization is 5 hours, they can still keep it for 6 hours, but they do not have to spend money of 9 hours, right? The amount of saving that you can bring by creating technology. But why is the guy interested in doing it? The guy is interested in doing it because he knows or she knows that by doing it, I'm actually earning more money per hour. So if I was paid 70 bucks per hour, today I can charge 80 rupees because the employer is getting benefited, I get benefited, and Better Place is helping them to get more work. So my earning per day, per month is still increasing. How beautiful that is. And that is the power of technology and creating the aggregator economy, right? And this is the change that is happening. And I would encourage everyone to participate in this change because this benefits each one of us. It's not only about we as an employer, but it's also about that individual. It's also about the economy, right? So let's see how we can work over next years together in that change. Let me also talk about a few things that I'm sure that each one of you know about it. I don't have to really deep dive into all those points, but just to reiterate, one of the things that I continuously hear whenever I talk to an organization, a CHRO, an MD, talent acquisition lead, what is your biggest problem in a blue-collar economy? It's not so much perhaps in white-collar, we can still find talent whenever we need. In the blue-collar, finding talent is the biggest issue. If I need 100 people, I perhaps get only 40, 50. You talk to anyone, and if you can raise hand who has enough supply, less demand, I would be very happy to see that hand. But everyone says that I am running 20, 30% shortage in supply. If I have more, I can get more work as well, right? So how do we fix that problem at scale, right? We can do it for 100, 200, 500 people. But if we do it for 1 million people, 5 million people, how do we do it, right? That becomes the biggest question. Attrition, and I think we as an organization, everyone that I spoke to, we have accepted the fact that attrition is bound to happen and we don't have to do anything perhaps, right? Because this is what we have seen for 20 years, so it will continue. But if you deep dive into it, you will realize that there are fundamental things, there are smaller things that causes that attrition. Of course, there are some attrition will happen because of circular migration. People go back to their villages after doing enough saving. They come back after 6 months of spending that money and then look for a job. There are multiple different things. But there are fundamental things that causes that attrition. It's the brand loyalty. It is getting the salary on time, not on 10th, but on 1st. It is the living condition. There are multiple things you all know. But how can we create that environment without increasing the cost? If I have to increase the cost and do all those things, then it's better that I live with that attrition because life is going on anyways, right? But if I can do the other way around, where I can bring the cost down and ensure there is a lower attrition, my TCO, which is the total cost of ownership, goes down over a period of a year, that will be amazing. But how do we achieve that, right? That becomes one of the challenges. And we have actually looked into millions of data points on why this is happening. We actually created a solution. I would encourage my team to show it to all of you over time. Attrition forecasting. If you put my data saying Praveen is this, education this, blah, 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 it will tell you whether I will leave the job in 15 days or I'll leave the job in 15 months, right? There's so much of AI power that we have brought into the system today. With every individual, you will be able to do a attrition forecasting, right? There's an infant attrition. People just come and leave within a day or a week, right? Why that happens? There is a lot of data that we have looked into, right? There are similarly multiple problems. Managing seasonality of jobs, people come, people go, there is a demand shift. I need suddenly 100,000 people versus the other time because there's a big billion day or there is IPL match coming up and so on. Productivity is another thing that every organization spoke to us about, right? Productivity is basically somebody joins me today and I anyway have to pay the salary to the individual, right? But can I utilize the time of the person and outcome is the best, right? How do I do it, right? And typically, this can be achieved through training. If you skill the person, if I'm joining a warehouse and I'm in a packing and unpacking or loading, unloading business, and I know exactly how to do it the day I join it. If I'm joining a restaurant and I know how to make the coffee exactly the way it should be done on day one, I don't have to spend time on teaching that guy, and the attrition is very high, and I do not have my teachers on the ground who can go and run those classroom sessions, then that will create productivity. But how do we do that at scale? Because unfortunately, you have people spread across the country. One of our customers, and my good friend Prashant, who will be speaking to you, he has guards spread over a few thousand locations. Now, if we have to train the people in every location, physically sending a trainer, then that itself for a few thousand guards will need at least 3x of the trainers, right? That is not feasible. How do we do that? The only way is creating productivity using technology, contextual learning program. I have to move this system from here to there. I just learn about that at that moment, right? Because if you think that we can create a learning which stays forever, this is not going to happen in this space, right? So we have to create this contextual. So that's the productivity. But at the same time, employees have their own share of problems as well, which we should know. Financial security is one of the problems. How do we help people earn money? Access to credit is another problem. Each one of us, by default, assume that we will always get a credit, right? We apply for a credit card. The banks are chasing us. Take a credit card. But how many banks are chasing a blue-collar worker saying, take a credit card or take even 1,000 rupees as a loan, right? No one. Right? But they perhaps deserve the most, right? They need the credit because they have to pay their kids' education. They have to pay certain things. How do we together enable that? It's not about a problem that I or you have to solve. We have to solve it together for that individual, because then only the brand loyalty, the stay, the attrition, the economy, everything moves forward, right? So this is a responsibility that we are taking on our shoulder. Together we are taking that on our shoulder. It's not a job or a function that we are looking at fixing, right? Lack of specialized skills is very fungible, so they do not see anyone can be replaced anytime and so on. So there are fundamental problems that needs to be resolved, right? How do we move the needle? The first thing that we said is your problem is finding people, and an individual's problem is finding a better opportunity, right? So we have launched a digital skill program for the blue-collar people. If you want to hire 100,000 people, 10,000 people, whatever number is that, you can create that content along with us, and we will reach out to people at no cost to you, and we will upskill them. And if people are interested in saying that, okay, I want to join Securitas, I want to join IFCO Tokyo, I want to join any other organization moving, I will take this training. And once I take the training, I'm ready to join that company. Right? And whenever you want to hire that person, you can actually look into the resource pool and saying, these are the people who are already trained for doing the job with you. Right? You don't have to spend money on skilling the people. And this is how we create a resource pool for future. Today, the problem is also that everyone wants to tap into the same resource pool, right? Nobody is looking at building a new resource pool, right? The supply is there, the demand is there, but it's not matching because there is no skilled workforce, right? How do we together create that skilled workforce which costs nothing for you, which costs nothing for the individual, and works beautifully for all of us? So we take the responsibility, partnering with you, creating that content, certifying those individuals, and keeping the resource pool ready from which you can hire any time that you wish to hire, right? This is, I think, is going to create entire shift towards the journey that I spoke about from 1.1 crore people in gig economy to 9 crore people, shift from 450 million to 500 million people over time, right? Use technology for improving efficiency, employee management. At the end of the day, when you scale, you need technology. We would partner with you, create the technology. We already work with 500 plus organizations in the country. Some of you would really perhaps say all good things about us, where we have helped you in creating the journey faster and better. But we would love to hear more about it. But this is one step that we look forward. Then how do we create technology that will improve the life of the user, but at the same time help you manage things more efficiently? Empower workforce. I think that's at the very heart of what we do. How do we help individuals access credit, knowledge, scale, insurance, and all the different things that we can do, bringing the ecosystem together. And finally, social and governance is very critical for us, right? At the end of the day, this is as important to us as it is to you. How do we ensure that there is more women coming into the workforce? There are organizations who ask us that, can you bring more women to the workforce? If you know the data, there's only 3% women working in the formal blue-collar ecosystem, right? 3% only, right? But it can become 20%, it can become 50%, right? Why it is 3% today? Because we do not have a focused approach towards it, right? If we create the right opportunity, might be it will go up. And that could also bring the attrition down in some cases, right? Because the right combination, which should be very helpful. And if you think through, there are actually jobs that can be done better by the women colleagues as well, right? So there are those activities that we would be working on. Organizations, and some of you who have already deployed the solutions already see huge value in terms of productivity, in terms of reduction in cost, and various other efficiency gains that you, of course, get with the usage of the solution. Most of the time, when we look at buying something or using a technology and software and other things, we always look at, this will cost me so much, right? We actually should think that how much cost it will save, because at the end of the day, when I'm buying a software, I'm buying efficiency, right? I'm not buying software itself, right? When I go to a shop and buy Apple, I don't bother about what is the cost of the Apple as long as it gives me enough health, right? I buy health, not Apple. Similarly, when I buy software, I buy efficiency. So always keep that in mind, and this is the change that we see anyway. And with COVID happening, everyone is looking towards the digital journey because that's the only way we can survive in the long run. The part that we play and the part that we commit to over next years together with you, one is that 10x resource pool that I spoke about already. So we commit to you, each one of you, that we will work with you and we will create the resource pool for you, which will not cost you any dollar, but we will ensure that the resource pool is readily available to you whenever you wish to hire them. Increased participation of women in frontline workforce by from 3% to 20% over next 7 years is what we are committing. And we are running special programs. We'll talk about that, one of those programs in a while from now, which we'll be launching here in this group. But our goal is that how can we create localized opportunity? If you look at people from Northeast, they are okay to migrate to other cities to work, but from North India, they do not migrate. How do you create local opportunities which are very relevant for them, right? So it's not just saying that I will bring people and it will happen. It will not happen. We will work together. There are very special focus approach that we will take, but we must do it, right? Financial inclusion is a very important part of this entire process. It is not about doing a favor to somebody by giving a credit. I think it is a duty for all of us to enable people that have access to credit, insurance, and so on. If a person falls sick in a blue-collar economy, people with 15,000, 20,000 rupees, this wipes out their entire life saving, right? How do we work together and create a health insurance for everyone, right? Today they do not have. Of course, the government has worked in certain initiatives. We have ESI, but is that working? If not, then how can we make it better, right? So there are various different aspects that we are working. How can we help people earn more money per hour, right? Sometimes it might sound to you that, okay, if they earn more money per hour, I will lose money, but it's the other way around, as I mentioned, that every time they earn more money, you get more efficiency, right? So you save more money when they earn more money. But how do we work that using technology and utilization in the best possible way, right? And finally, we want to partner with you in your digital journey and ensure that all those aspects that we bring together as we move on. And when we looked into this entire space in India, I just wanted to leave a thought to you. We will not go into detail. And we looked into this, and I said, oh, India, we have so many problems, and we have to do a lot of things to add value to people. But the good or the bad news is that it's the same everywhere, right? In Asia, in Americas, in South America, Africa, everywhere is the same. And we just put some data about Southeast Asia, where we are launching in Indonesia and Malaysia, and we'll launch in Philippines and Thailand early next year. The problem remains the same, and some of you might be operating in other parts of the world as well, and might have seen this already happening, and we can really think through, brainstorm on how we can add value, not only scope here in India, but across the region, right? I'm over time. Might be just in time. Yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to share. Would love to have a conversation during the breaks and love to learn from you. Thank you so much, and have a very nice evening, and looking forward to interacting with all of you as the day progresses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwala, for highlighting the need to develop an enabling ecosystem for the frontline workforce. I would request Mr. Agarwala to remain on stage. Can you imagine a day without everyday heroes? Who are they? You may wonder. These are the people who are actually working with us to ensure that our days are smooth. Security guards, receptionists, cooks, delivery partners, cab drivers, electricians, and the list goes on. We at Better Place call them our everyday heroes. But have you ever wondered why most frontline jobs are taken up by men? Data from our own jobs platform, Rocket, shows that only 23% job applicants are women, and only a small fraction of these pick up a job. Isn't it time to change this landscape? And yes, we felt it too. We're proud to announce our partnership with British International Investment for Project Powering Women. Through this, we aim to upskill 1 lakh women and make them eligible for immediate employment. So let's watch a video. Request Mr. Agarwala to say a few words on the partnership.
Thank you. I think this is an initiative. I first of all like to thank BII. Unfortunately, they could not join the event today. British International Investment. They are the sovereign fund of UK and one of our investors and partner as well. So we started this idea of how do we bring women, as I was talking about, and we partner with them. And we create the technology and the process where they bring in some capital as well. We want to create a model first where we can scale and see how it can be repeated in multiple locations, right? So the first step that we have taken is training 1 lakh women across different geographies, find out the model that we can create as a template and multiply it to millions. The idea here is to look at opportunities locally, the skills which are right fitting, the jobs which are right for them, skilling in one area, the demand not being there, and demand being there but not skilling or not finding the right match becomes a problem. So there are a lot of technology that we will use to kind of create a model that works perfectly. That's where we are taking time, but it's our pledge that we will work with all of you towards the journey. So if you are looking at specifically saying, okay, in my particular location or particular job profile, we would love to learn from you, partner with you, and work towards this journey and help entire ecosystem in achieving the goals that you would like to achieve. So please join us in this initiative. I think this is very important, not only for the people, but it's also for the entire society that this happens over time. So thanks for that, and thanks to BII once again for encouraging us and partnering with us in this journey. Thank you, and looking forward to partnering with all of you on that.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal. Okay, now, so ladies and gentlemen, let us now proceed to our first panel discussion, tapping into the new age workforce. How can enterprise benefit from the changing workforce trend? For this, I would like to invite on stage Ms. Pragati Kakkar, GM at IFCO Tokyo General Insurance, Ms. Renu Bohra, CPO, DB Shankar, Mr. Tanveer Singh, co-founder and COO Moving, Mr. Prashant Mishra, CTO Securitas India. So this session will be moderated by Mr. Nilab Kapoor, COO Enterprise Ops and Workforce Fulfillment Better Place. So request you to please come on the stage.
A very good evening. Is the mic working? I have a mic. Okay, great. A very good evening once again. Over the course of our discussions and discovery at Next Step events, we have realized that technology has been playing an increasing role in managing touch points across the worker's life cycle. Now, this increase in digitization has been facilitated by two factors. The rapid shifts that Praveen was talking about. One is formalization of the workforce, and second, an acceleration of the gig economy and the gig workforce, adopted by employers to increase their productivity and efficiency, and by employees to increase their earning potential. So today we have a wonderful and distinguished panel with us who will share with us their deep insights and experiences about this ever-changing nature of our workforce, and how do you manage this new workforce which is emerging in the last 2 to 3 years. So to set the context, I would start with my opening question, which is for all the panelists. One, in your experience, would like to understand how has the nature of work and workforce changed? And what are these two trends that you see as this shift is happening? Tanveer, if we can start with you, what's your take on how workforce is changing?
No, thanks for the introduction. So just a little bit background so that I can, whenever what I'm speaking will be in a better context. So what I bring to the table is a startup's view, and our startup is into electric mobility. So from a startup's angle, it's very different. I see from where my panelists are coming from. I think how it has changed. So this is my second startup. So from the first, almost 10 years back, today, the workforce, which is, let's say, the white-collar workforce, is actually, at least the ones we encounter, is fairly willing to take risks, right? They understand the need that if they're taking the risk, they expect that the value of that is given to them in terms of ESOPs or in terms of, the required compensation. And this is being shown in how the entire ecosystem is developing as well. A lot of our work happens on the blue-collar side as well. And
yeah, so it would be great if you can focus on the front line.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming to. So a lot of our work happens on the blue-collar side as well. And my twist with blue collar is almost about 7, 8 years, earlier with solar and now with EVs. On the blue collar side, frankly, I'll say we've tried to bring a lot of change in terms of how these people are working. From contractors, earlier it was contractors, now these people have taken charge of their own bread and butter. And this is possible because of the tech, as we were discussing just before this as well. And I think that's the biggest change which has come up. And because of this one-to-one outreach that we are able to do, right, we are also able to better control our costs and increase our efficiencies. I think that's one of the key things that has come out.
Understood. Thank you. Renu, what would be your take?
Am I audible to you all? Good evening to you all, and thank you, Nilab, and thank you, Better Place, for inviting us. And I look forward to an interesting discussion in the panel, and I also look forward for meaningful interaction later on. So to your question that what are the two big themes in the context of, present and future in relation to frontline workers, I would say that, we always try to make sense of future and the current. And we have been using this word called VUCA, V-U-C-A, so many times, like volatile and, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And students tell me that now this word is outdated. You talk about BANI, and they say it's like brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. But whether we talk about VUCA to define present or BANI to define future, I would say if we reflect on the work and the workplace, I find that on the nature of work, whether we are talking about, say, startup or talking about an organized sector like us, I find that the nature of work is changing, and it is changing so fast. It is tech-driven, it is tech-supported, if not tech-driven, which calls for collaborative, working. So I come from an era where we had note sheet culture in PSU, where it was so linear. You move your note sheet, executive, senior executive, manager, senior manager, DGM, and so on. But now we talk about collaborative work culture. So it's so non-linear, and the workplace is hybrid to make some sense of whether it's remote, working from anywhere, but we say, okay, let's talk about hybrid workplace. So what is the new workforce which is emerging? And I'm sure that this workforce is so visible to all of us when we interact with them for our day-to-day work, professionally or in our daily life. We find they are young, they are tech native, technology native. We find that they are very diverse. So you said that 3% women are in the frontline workforce in India. Fortunately, I've got my colleagues sitting with us, and we are happy to say that we are 7% in Shankar, 7% women in frontline. Otherwise, we have around close to 20%. And there is a workforce which wants to make money. You spoke a lot about money and, how do we increase per hour thing. When we interview them, and they don't leave for money, but they leave for flexibility because they won't like to be flexible to earn money, to take career decisions and money decisions on their own and not by us. And I also see influence of PWD, people with disability, coming up. Not in a big way, but if we see that 1 person for every 10% has some disability, be it intellect or social or physical disability, it's important that corporates and startups think about PWD as so much available. Let's not talk about disability. Even WHO says people comes first, then disability. So these are the new trends coming up, and these are my 2 cents on this question.
Great. Thanks, Renu. Thanks for at least educating me with a new acronym, BANI, and look forward to having you as a partner as we go to the 20% mission as far as diversity is concerned. Prashant, my question is the same to you, but I would just like to also get a sense from you because you are exposed to a very large global organization. Are there any global trends that you see emerging in India? And also within these trends, are there any unique aspects that you are seeing which is exclusive as far as the frontline workforce is concerned? Because we normally always say India is a very unique country when it comes to the nuances. So that would be very helpful.
So thank you, Neelab. Visible? So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for the time this evening. And before I start, let me just give you a little bit of background about the security industry, because I think that once you have that context, then it becomes very easy to understand what those aspirations are, given the fact that most of us sitting here are coming from a very organized corporate environment. It's a different thing altogether in the security industry. So it's been growing rapidly. India, in the past couple of years, it's been at an 11 to 13% CAGR. It's one thing which is very, very surprising is that it's the largest employer after agriculture in India. So you can just imagine the workforce that we have at our disposal. And I'm going to come to why I brought that point up. Largest employers, huge amount of workforce. As India moves towards that dream of that $5 trillion economy, there's about a $1 trillion that's going to be spent on infrastructure projects, which is going to be across the length and breadth of the country. And what we know from our research is that the security that is required for such kind of projects is woefully low because the government doesn't have. There's a lot of places where so that's where private players are going to play a very important part. So now you have there's a huge demand. There is going to be huge demand. There's a huge potential employee base that's available. Then we have the problem. The problem is the employees, just like any other employee in any other industry, is very aspirational. So they have different aspirations. They are coming in. The moment they get a job, and Praveen was talking about that, they look for that sense of security. So if they are making that 15 to 20 or 25,000 rupees per month, the aspirations start to grow. And then they start looking at what else can the employer provide. So there is a lot of demand that comes in. So can I get an insurance? Can I get, my provident fund, will it be taken care of? So those things become very important where attrition is there. So in the security industry, what happens is the attrition, there's a lot of churn that happens. So there's a lot of focus and pressure on the organization to keep those people with us. That's one. Skilling them, making sure that they know what the SOPs are for various different locations. So manned guard security for a condominium is very different from manned guard security for a warehouse. Those nuances and making those particular skills, those trainings to them quickly is very important. They want to know about this because they feel that this is something that is going to improve their lot. So that's very important for them. So you have to start seeing them as people who want to be a part of your journey, who are looking, who have just got their foot in the door and they want to move forward. That's one thing. Now you asked about the global thing. Globally, security agencies in the world, because they're more organized, you have a lot more structure to them. In India, the man guarding security or the security industry in general, in my perception, is fairly disorganized. There's a movement towards that, not just from the organization's efficiency and optimization point of view, but also, again, from the employee's aspirational point of view. They want that stability. They look for it. So they want to get into that routine where they can be skilled, they can be there, they can get their salaries as early as possible. So, those things put a lot of pressure on us, on the leadership, on the people who are defining those new processes. How do we make sure that these people stay with us? So I see those changes that are there.
Understood. Yeah, very critical changes. And when you were sharing your specific experience, it was like a complete glimpse of the life cycle that we at Better Place is also trying to manage, from the time the guard comes to upskilling them and their financial security and benefits. So thank you. Pragati, what would be your take as far as what trends are you seeing in your specific
So good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'll make it short and crisp. So the big change I'm seeing as far as work is concerned is business models are changing very, very fast. I mean, at unbelievable speed, they are coming in and they're out of, suddenly they're redundant and you need to think of new models. So innovation. Then analytics, I think, has started playing a huge role. And it's not a yearly process. It is a weekly, monthly, daily process for many organizations. Plus, with technology, you're getting, it's moving from a survive to a thrive culture. So people who are resilient, people who go with the change, and L&D has a very, very sharp focus for organizations, so which is a good thing, and the reason is it makes business sense. How workforce has changed is it's a very young force, and what I love especially about the millennials and the Z is they are very, very focused and clear on what are the deliverables that they want. And a good gap which has been closed is a lot of times organizations thought that people need more salaries, more wages. A lot of times they need more opportunities for growth, they need opportunities to be respected and opportunities to be heard. So that has come to the core thinking for organizations. So that's a huge shift which I see is very, very important.
And what I could understand from all the panelists is we are still trying to find that secret sauce where everything comes together. But I think good you touched about millennials and Gen Z also.
Yeah,
that would be very important, as we discover and move forward. My next question, I would like to come to you, Ren, and go specific to your experiences and your industries. So logistics as a space, and we have seen in our Better Place report also, the maximum hiring demand for us in the frontline workforces from logistics, e-commerce, and mobility. So as a space, it has immense potential to scale workers and for workforce optimization. But at the same time, the industry is also susceptible to variability and variation in demand, and to any transformation at the external environment or the external factors is concerned. So how have you been able to use technology to leverage the potential that you have while mitigating any external factors or any factors which are coming from the external environment?
It's a fairly long question. So so I represent DB Schenker. This company is a global multinational organization. We are leader in supply chain management and logistics solution. So we want to just generally put, companies in boxes. So you can say we are 3PL with capability of 4PL in terms of giving shipping solution, in terms of giving various solutions on freight forwarding, and logistics and supply chain. Now, coming to your question about variability of business. Yeah, as I said, the world is VUCA, so business is so variable. And then, how do we make sense out of it in companies like us? The customer looks for an optimum workforce or optimum inputs. Even we, if we have to survive as an organization, we have to have the optimum workforce, which can obviously help us in the case of spikes up and down at a very rapid speed. Having said that, how do we do it? Because there has to be a method to the madness, and we have been doing it quite successfully. So there are various ways that we are doing it. I'll just speak about 4 or 5 ways. One is of using pool of resources. So we have we are into freight forwarding, as I said. We move freight through various shipping solutions by air, by ocean. In the last 2 years, there was a sudden spike in air chartering because of pharmaceuticals and so on. We were exporting and importing. We were chartering aircrafts, and we made huge volumes out of it. Suddenly, there is a downtrend here. And we have got 50 people or 100 people working in that particular area. So what do? They are generally, having multiple skills. So we move them to ocean, because if our solution for air freight is not moving, customers are moving towards ocean freight as a solution for their shipping needs. And then we immediately make this kind of deployment. That is one. Obviously, the challenge is that how ready we are, and how ready are people with the growth mindset. Second thing is about flexi-force. So we're talking about frontline workers. We're talking about blue-collar and white-collar workers working at the warehouse space. And we employ majority of our workforce in the warehouse are third-party employees hired through manpower agencies, which ideally are not gig in that sense of definition. But yes, they are like contractual for 11 months, less than that also. We use flexi-force to meet the needs in the case of festival boom, or in the case of, a new customer coming up, to stabilize the operation. Once the operations are stabilized, obviously the learning curve is passed, and then you move this workforce from one project to another. So the challenge is how we talk to the workers, how do we communicate to the workers, and how we hire workers who can move from one project to another project. So do they have those kind of broad skills? Third is about digitization. As we said, I've got a CTO sitting with me, so I will not speak much about digitization, but I said that any kind of these things, unless you have technology supporting you, you can't see people as two hands and two legs. For example, when I said that robotics, like we have got many processes in our operations are now RPA'd. We have used those interventions around, say, invoicing, around reading, around picking, packing, having a very strong warehouse management system so that we can scale up and scale down. Not only that, we provide very different kind of workforce model for different customers, because every customer doesn't have the same business solution. So there are customers who ask us that we only want women as forklift operators. And then how do you suddenly, tie up with an agency, train women, and keep some in the bench, and then meet this need of the customer. We have some customers who say that we want people with disability in a bigger workforce, and we could hire people with hearing impairment doing some kind of jobs where they were able to, they were more of, design kind of jobs and so on. So all this is possible, obviously, through attracting right people, through upskilling, and there I think she'll speak a lot about how I think upskilling is the new game changer. Having a good HCM where you can do a proper rostering, otherwise you would be just breaking your head in how do you roster people in multiple shifts and yet be compliant. Having a very strong governance model in the organization, which is totally compliant to the labor laws in terms of working hours, in terms of bonus payment, in terms of ESIC, in terms of attendance and so on, and having a very strong metrics for measurement. So all these are challenges, but yes, we are working on that.
I think you covered a lot of important points, and if I would like to summarize, and I think it's important for the audience, rapid deployment, fungibility, and customization is the key for you to build this model. And over that, there is this layer of digitization which is helping you. And I think the secret sauce, at least what I could make out from this panel, is upskilling and continuous training of workers so they are ready for the job as soon as possible. And I think it's a good cue to now come to you, Pragati. You are the specialist in that area. Yeah, I'll keep the question short. So generally, L&D, and when it comes to very large teams, is a long drawn process. So my question is in two parts. What we would like to understand, and that similar needs Renu and others would also have. How do you take these long, large L&D process and sync in your immediate and near-term needs? So that's first part of the question. And while you are doing both of these, how do you try and tie them with the earning potential and career progression of the workers?
Wonderful, great question. I think you are looking at the organization and the individual both. So we are a typical insurance industry, very, very traditional lines of business. Where L&D in the near term, basically we create a larger yearly plan, which is very essential to align with the direction of the organization. Once you have it in place, you can, the near-term plans, you can you can change them, you can twist them, and you have to have multi-modal approach. For example, during COVID times, we started these one-man digital offices, manned by one person in a remotest of location. The guy does not understand Hindi. At times he doesn't understand English. How do I reach out to him? The guy does not know insurance. How do I make sure that he's ready to sell by the time his office's kind of licenses are done? So we used a very good resource as the learning app. So about 4 years back, we got into app-based learning system. So there is micro-learning there, and since the language was creating a barrier, we created vernacular courses. And we did different methods. We did some webinars, we did live trainings, we also went for simulation-based training. We put up some processes there. There were some compliance trainings. We ensured that all of them went through the compliance courses digitally. Then the process, I know there is an app, but how do I tell my customer how to use the claims app or how to use the customer app? So we kind of created courses. If you need to go to somebody, this is what you need to tell them. This is how you engage with your customer. We introduced soft skill courses for them. How do you get a conversation? What are the openers which you should use? So these were the short needs of the end user, because we told him, take care of your business, take care of your individual targets, the company business gets taken care of. So we helped him grow, and he realized there was opportunity for him to learn, get better, and obviously people who completed targets moved on vis-a-vis, and it's more of a continuous. You have to keep reinforcing, and you have to keep changing ways. If one way doesn't work, for example, people are visual, some people like audio, for some languages a barrier, so you have to keep changing the methodology. For example, if we are giving them a product knowledge, we don't go all gyan on the product. So we tell them, we are your success partners. We are going to teach you how to do this successfully. So we do a FAB, which is a feature advantage benefit, as most of us know is. So the product feature is what my product has. Advantage is how we are better vis-a-vis a customer. And benefit is how does it benefit your customer. So you do not talk about the features of your product when you go to the customer. You tell him how does it benefit him. So which is where you get better sales, which is where your numbers. So we give them those tools which they require to fulfill their own target achievement. So which has helped us in a big way.
Wonderful. So adversity is a great teacher, and pandemic times taught us a lot.
Lots,
I think the way you
yes.
adopted it, specifically for frontline workers, is by creating micro-learning, granular, customized solutions,
Absolutely.
tailor-made for the individual. You cover
Absolutely.
vernacular,
Yeah.
and create a virtuous cycle so that people are able to pick from the benefits or the incentives which are there available for them.
And we made, big thing is people always leave managers, they don't leave organizations. So we equip their managers with the ability to handle their teams, and the touch points, the personal points which they needed, we made it the reporting manager's responsibility. You are responsible for this guy's success. We are giving him tools, we are giving you tools, go. And if you fail, come back to us, we will teach you how to do it differently. Yeah. So that safe space of learning needs to be created by organizations.
Something
it's
I
very,
always
very
like to
important.
talk about in digitization, the human factor has to be covered up. Otherwise, it's just going to be in a silo and might not solve all your problems. Yeah. Prashant, I would like to come to you with my next question. Efficiency, governance, and productivity are essentially key drivers when it comes to the on-field security industry. How are you able to use technology to improve efficiency and productivity for a distributed and large, ever-expanding workforce like yours?
Okay, so that's a very good question. The short answer to that question is that my job is a very difficult job. The more broader answer for that is, I think that as far as the security industry is concerned, not just us, but any other player, investment in technology is going to play one of the key roles in that, either die or thrive. I think that it's something which is very important, and there are multiple reasons. So we've in the first question that you asked me, you asked about the aspirations of the employees. So we've covered that a little bit. Now I'll tell you the other part. The other part is our customers. How do you maintain our top line? The intense competition in the market, given the way the market is actually growing and the potential that it has. In all these places, the only thing that can be the saving grace is going to be technology. So that's one part. Our customers, if you see, one of the first things that actually happens when they are trying to, streamline or reduce their costs, they'll first come to the security and the peripheral organizations. Let's reduce here. So it's very important that they continuously remain invested in whatever you are actually providing to them, so that when you are going for a contract renewal, you can say that these are the things that we are actually providing to you. That's one part. The second part is for the organizations themselves, and that's where the pressure comes from the employees. The employees, in the sense that they are looking at can I get my salary earlier than possible, because you have to retain them. That becomes very important, which means that you have to actually reduce your DSOs. You have to make sure that all communications are free. and they are happening quickly. They are transparent. People are seeing what's actually happening. And the third aspect, which generally does not get covered in conversations, is the extreme regulations that we actually have. So security industry is a fairly regulated industry. So there are stringent acts that we have to comply with. In all these places, that efficiency, optimization, governance is very important. So we are investing in platforms where we are trying to do attendance management system, but we are we are trying to kill two birds with the same stone. One, we're making sure that we are ensuring that our employees understand that their duty is actually getting marked into the system. But the second thing that we are actually doing is we are also getting an insight into our operations. And we are getting insight about who that individual is, where he is actually working, so that we can provide that very transparently to our customers. In the times of crisis, that very capability can become the linchpin for more optimization, for more efficiency, for making sure that you're rising up to the occasion. Whatever the crisis is, you're making sure that you're mitigating it, and then showing that value to the customer, that compared to X, Y, or Z, your organization is doing this because the underlying technology is working. So you talked about, somebody said about digitization. I think it's the most important thing in our industry, given the unorganized nature that it has. And I think the person who cracks this particular code is the person who's going to lead this particular industry.
Understood. So I think while we were discussing specific aspects to the security industry, you brought a very nice way of looking at the entire piece of the puzzle. Look at it inside out. What value are you able to deliver to the end customer? And if you're able to take that approach, the solutions will also come in handy. Okay. I'll come to you, Tanveer. And what I would like to understand is specifically in EV, the hot industry of today, a lot of tailwinds there. You would be giving rise to a new workforce, like the platform companies were the ones which made gig workers mainstream. While you're doing this, are you facing challenges in terms of hiring, managing operations, and efficiency of this workforce? And in case that's so, how are you trying to come up to the task in terms of using technology and automation and processes to address them?
No, so yes, so EV, yes, though it's the buzzword, but so part of our business at Moving is managing last mile mobility, and we do it, part of it is managed logistics, where we are working with the likes of Amazon, Big Basket, Flipkart, and part of it is unmanaged logistics, where we are ensuring that the driver partner that we have, they get the best of the product, they get the best of the ecosystem, so that at least from our side as a service provider to the driver, they don't face any issues. So two parts. The nuance in this industry is these people, first of all, did not want to adopt EVs. And EVs as such came from very shabby products, low speed products, products which broke down every other day. That's the overhang these people had, to slowly now moving where they will shift to another company if that company's product is better. And they don't own these products. So we are facing challenges at different levels. Apart from managing the challenges of a gig workforce, where last mile logistics provides them a lot of flexibility in terms of they're free, right? They're in the field. Though someone like a Swiggy, they have an app, there is geofencing, someone like an Amazon, Flipkart, but they still have a lot of time on their hands. And when this is outsourced to a last mile logistics provider like us or a fleet operator like us, there is a lot of flexibility. So one part is managing that. The other part is ensuring that they have the right product. How do they learn to utilize that product properly, do not break that product? How do we ensure that they get the best out of that? Because there is some technology involved there, right? If the driver does not drive it properly, he might not get the required range. If the company like us, if we don't provide him the right infrastructure, he might not get the best, maximum earning during the day. So these are the two problems we are solving. So just to set the context. Now coming to the first part of the problem, right? Obviously, the part of our solution comes from partnering with Better Place, and that is obviously the standards about attendance, standards about the geofencing, standards about your basic hygiene of the whole thing. But this flexibility that this job provides is very particular. The beauty of our product is completely connected, right? We have a connected vehicle, a connected battery, and then obviously the application, and then obviously the entire work from the number of hours to number of deliveries to number of kilometers run to, so everything can be incentivized as well as penalized, and that's where tech comes into picture. And the visibility has to be there. So if the customer, if the driver partner does not see all these things real time, right? So one of the things that we are improving on is real time visibility of every single order, every single penalty, every single incentive, and gamifying it to ensure that we are better able to manage these gig workers. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is the other challenges. Obviously, we cannot differentiate. As a fleet operator and a logistics provider, we are dependent on the likes of Swiggy, Zomato, Amazon, Flipkart. What they provide us is the best we can do. We cannot pay out of our pockets. This is a very thin margin business. Though we run EVs, but still the savings are not that, because we are still competing at the same level of 15,000, 18,000, 20,000 a month. So in such a scenario, how do we differentiate? So we've started a program called Early Wage Access, where from our pockets, obviously, we get money in 60 days, but still we have to rotate this money to these gig workers. So Early Wage Access provides money to these drivers whenever they want. They want it daily, they want it weekly. Obviously, there's a small cost to it, but that's where the fintech play has come into picture. And that has actually shown, so that's how we are differentiating, and we are ensuring that these drivers stick to our platform, because beyond a point, I cannot pay more than anyone else, right? I will be at par. The other thing is, now coming to the product side of it. In EV specifically, like gig workers, right? We've talked about it. A small nuisance to them and they'll switch, right? They don't get the salary on time, they'll switch. Even one day they'll strike and then they'll switch. You talk to them badly, they'll switch, right? So these are the things. So from grounds up, we've trained our guys to be empathetic. We've trained our guys to ensure that you teach them what this product is, right? What EVs are, how to run, what's the right speed to run, what happens during rainy seasons, what happens during summers, because this vehicle performs very differently in Delhi peak summers and very differently in Bangalore peak summers, very differently in rains, very differently in winters, because that's how the product maturity is today. So that education and that learning is what we've been providing, and ensuring that these people get, so even in our L&D part, as Pragati was saying, it's all digital. We reach out to them through the app, we reach out to them continuously. So in our Train the Trainer, on a daily basis, we tell them the basic hygiene, and today we've reached a level where most of our old drivers, I'll say 50% of them, actually know how to repair the basic issues of EVs, right, which do come at the stage of the maturity. So they're repairing them, they are able to run these EVs almost non-stop. So that part is also digitized, and so these are few things that where we are using technology to ensure that we at least differentiate from the other fleet operators which are out there, specifically working in the EV side.
So very interesting aspect. While Prashant talked about inside, outside, what I could make out is you're talking about outside in. If you're taking the external environment, how are you building incentives for your workforce to kind of ensure stickiness is there, and also a good use case for everybody where the productivity and efficiency becomes important if the margins are low. One last thing that you talked about is empathy, which is something that you're trying to ingrain into the system. And that's where my last and closing question would be about the human aspect or the humanized approach, which is very important whenever we are looking at any shift or trying to manage new age workers. So an important component of nurturing any workforce, including the new age workforce, is to start with increasing retention and reduce attrition. So would like to understand, and it's open to the floor, we can go in any order, any one measure that you have started using to improve your retentions of late with the new workforce, and any which, if there is any which was something in play earlier but is no longer effective or is no longer solving the problem for longevity in the ecosystem. So.
Maybe I'll just continue from where I left about the early wage access. So that's been a game changer. Earlier, we were paying the drivers every 30 days, startup, right? So not easy to get the cash flow running. Then we reduced it to 15 days payouts, but this early wage access has actually helped us give money in the hands of the drivers when they need it. And another thing that a lot of companies, or a lot of my industry colleagues, we talk a lot about insurance, right, at the grassroots level, at the blue frontline workers level. We do get insurance for them, but at the end of the day, what we've seen is when it's time, when they really need it, there are a lot of steps, right? So we initially had the program where we had someone in office or someone from the third party ensure that if an insurance claim comes, they are the ones who are helping them out. But still, the time it takes for the insurance to actually work around is a long time. In logistics industry, the problems are actually serious. There are accidents, there are a lot of issues which are actually of a serious nature. So what we changed is we added, so we have something called as an emergency fund. We went to all our partners. We told them that, okay, 10 rupees a month is what we are deducting from your salaries, and this is what you get out of it. And believe me, that trust level, 10 rupees, obviously, they did not matter, but the result of it is now. We have a huge corpus, and that corpus has really helped. I have my colleagues here so that corpus has really helped these drivers trust us. Women riders, any rider. In case of an emergency, we don't shy away from immediately ensuring that at that level, whoever needs whatever money they need, they're able to get that. There is no loops, no hoops. And when this word of mouth spreads, that we are actually taking care of these people. And believe me, this 10 rupees is a very small amount, but it has actually reached a level where these people trust us and say, okay, we'll take care of them. When we say we take care of them, they understand and they believe us. So these two things have really helped us in differentiating and ensuring that attrition is reduced. Though it's still very high for our taste, but there has been at least a 10 to 15% reduction from our peaks.
10% is like an amazing feat, and I think you have used network effects, if I would say, to the core in terms of solving for
We've
it.
tried.
Yeah, so what has worked for us, I think many things, but on the top of it, which is coming to my mind right now, is we organize this, help desk very frequently at the warehouse level to help our workers understand A, their salary slip, B, provident fund, how to do the right nomination on the right time, because we found in the COVID days that people had not done nomination and the funds could not reach their nominees or the family members. So we organize this help desk quite regularly with the help of the manpower agency. We ask them to come to our website. In place of worker going to the agency, we ask our manpower agencies to come to our workplace and organize this. So this works very well for us. Besides this, learning opportunity has also worked quite well for us, because we are not the best paymaster. Though we provide insurance, death insurance we provide, and in the case of death, we immediately release 3 months salary. We also give some cash towards cremation and things like that. These are, said rules, and we implement them in all the sites for frontline workers. So this has worked well for us. One thing more which has worked partially well for us is that we have been telling our people that don't look at the workers as a pair of hands. Rather think and skill them, maybe not for your own organization, but for the community, because they will come back to you maybe in another form or in another role. Like we have in Shankar stories in Europe where truck drivers have reached to the stage of transportation heads. We don't have such stories in India, though we have only 1 or 2 odd story in Shankar, India, where there was a picker-packer who is now a warehouse in charge. So giving them the right training, right mindset, and opportunities, and a very equitable work environment has worked well for us. One thing which has not worked well, and I was looking into your presentation, I was thinking, talking to you, like we had tied up with one agency. I wanted to, free our dependency on the manpower agencies for giving us workers. So the manpower agencies, they go to a certain village, they bring those workers from the village, of the same community kind of thing, and there's a dependency on us for those village people through the manpower agency. We would like rather to be seen by young, maybe matriculate workers or students who want to join workforce in villages, and they, go through our app. We have tied up with an agency called 21CC. They certify themselves on warehouse operations. They approach us, they find where are the positions open in the warehouses, picker, packer, loader, unloader, data entry operator, and so on, and they join us so that we may still take them through the route of manpower agency, but at least we will be not depending on the manpower agency for hiring these people. So that we have not been able to do it in a big way. For any new projects, we again have to talk to the manpower agencies, and they provide us those people. So we are working on that, yeah.
Yeah. I think today, as we'll move forward, it will become more and more important to even create an employer brand for the frontline workers. And there are a number of ways and methods that all of us are evaluating today. Prashant, your take.
So for us, I think empathy, is the key word. That's something very important, given the volatility of the target workforce, because they can switch very easily. So you have to, compared to any other brand, for you, it's very important that you remain the employer of choice, and what's worked in our, is apart from the training which has been spoken about, upskilling, aspirations, and making sure that, understanding the psyche of the workforce, where are they actually coming from? That can be completely different. I can tell you my own experience. For me, it was completely different when you start meeting your employees, what are they actually looking forward to? That becomes, and where they're actually coming from. So, if you see, most of the employees that you get are coming from hinterlands, tier 3, tier 4, maybe rural areas who come in. They are migrants, and they want to do something. So for them, what becomes very important is how quickly can they get access to money, salary, primary importance. Secondly, there's also a psychological element as well, because at times, and let's be open about it, certain places, frontline employees are not looked upon. You don't give them that dignity of labor, which actually happens in more mature markets. There's always that kind of a bias that exists, and it exists not on a top level, but more in the supervisor level, the manager level, because somebody who's there will say that this guy is a guard. So those things need to be systematically removed. Processes need to be put in place to ensure that that person starts believing that there is dignity in this 8-hour shift that he's actually doing, plus he's getting the money. You have to, there are cases where people are leaving their job and they're going away, and they have their PF which has been given to them because their daughter is getting married. You have to see the gleam in their eyes. So, that's completely different from the organized sector, and that's where things become, it puts more focus on the processes, on the technology, on the underlying subsystem that the company is actually existing on, to ensure that these guys actually come back to you. So, there are people who go away, there's harvest time, they're taking their money, they're going, or they're going to go build their house. Now there's a lot of schemes that the government is providing, so they want some money to do that. If you provide that to them, if you make sure that they feel that come three months, they will be again back into the workforce. It's very important to understand that psyche.
Agreed. I think you touched up on the human aspect very effectively. It's very important to give dignity, and I've mostly heard Praveen say, what really matters to the frontline worker the most, apart from his salary, is his children's education and health care for him and his parents.
Absolutely. There's one more thing that I forgot I had to mention. We spoke a lot about women employees. Yes, of course, women employees in the security industry are quite less. There are multiple reasons, because there's a gender bias, huge gender bias. There's also sense of lack of security, which is a very ironic thing that you're in the security industry. But what we've also noticed, like, we go very aggressive as far as employing women is concerned. There is a reason behind that. Actually, there are two reasons behind that. One is when you actually employ a woman employee into your workforce as a security guard or as a man guard in any different places. You're actually increasing the remit of your operations. You are actually getting more people coming in. That's one. Secondly, there's a surprising thing that, like, with women guards or women security personnel, the operation somehow becomes, and I don't know how this actually happens, I've not cracked that particular code, but like the operations become a lot more streamlined. Like, there's a lot more, as they move into a supervisory role, etc., it actually creates a difference. Like, the clients come back and say that, yes, things are moving more efficiently. It could be because of a particular mindset, characteristics of a particular gender, or it could be just because that presence of a woman in a predominantly male-dominated world also creates that sense of harmony. So I think that's very important. I think it's very important to continuously keep focusing on that and get them into the fold.
Agree.
So I'll just take a quick point from this and say actually more women need to get into workforce for them to reach those positions where they can actually be supervisors. So that journey can be quick for them, but that acceptability around needs to build up. So yeah, I understand. Okay, now back to where I was. I totally get what you're saying there. So for me, I think what really works is we've created a process of onboarding which is digitalized now. So every new employee who gets into our organization has a learning journey. There are certain, so the day one he enters, we register him on the app and we tell him before you do anything else, this tells you about the company, the HR policies, compliance courses, then these are some of our product information. Basic information which everybody in the company needs to know. So we've created a journey and we give them 2 weeks time to complete it. So while he's kind of getting to know the work which he's doing and getting to know people within the organization, as step one, I think it makes a huge impact in the retention and engagement of the new employees, especially with the organization. So they do understand that they are important, the focus. So we've actually broken it into parts where at a second level, wherever the office they have joined, then kind of needs to orient them to the office space and how work is happening there. Then post a month or so, I normally get into a Zoom call with all the new joinees and I find out what was in the program they liked, didn't like. So a constant feedback we keep taking and we keep improving on it. I think that's one of the key to success for most training interventions is connect with your users, take the feedback, implement it, use it. It creates success stories. Plus, we engage a lot with them through various mediums. Every festival we'll do some quiz, a fun quiz. It's not just about business. So Independence Day, okay, how well do you know about India's independence? So we go on a quiz spree. Then there is a product which they've learned. We say, okay, let's find out what you know about this product. Then we create champions. Then, through feeds, people who really use the app well, we give them recognition. Oh, this guy has done a great job. Let's share this 2-minute video about this guy. So the guy is like the hero of the day. So we kind of give them reasons to celebrate their success stories. That's really worked well for us.
Great. I think really encouraging to hear the panel talk about diversity and getting more women into the workforce. From our side also a baby step. I think 20% is just a journey and we need to ensure that it's 50% or more. So a wonderful discussion, a lot of insights, a lot of themes we touched about. In summary, as we all in this house go towards a 5 trillion India, an aspirational India, we have to understand that every frontline worker also has an aspiration and a dignity, which we need to recognize and nurture and take them along with us in terms of the journey. Important key points are life cycle management and engagement, as you touched about, and also creating a virtuous cycle while we go about it. Upskilling and skilling came out as a secret sauce, if you ask me, in a nutshell, and also the human aspect, where empathy and trust is very important as we build forward, with these workers. So coming to the closing of the session, I would like to keep it open to the house for any questions you have from our panelists.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I'm Vineet from Accenture. My basic question is that why is it that we see that the fintech and the big tech and health tech is basically focused more on more on higher end employees. For example, they are able to get insurance facilities. For example, they are able to get accommodation, auto loans, auto finance, etc. Where sometimes even they may be able to avail it. They may be able to have great market, but the gig workers have a much more bigger share because they are the one who are basically a connecting point with the customer, and customer is basically today connected with them. So he basically knows how the product is faring and how is the market faring. So you can get much more better input from the gig worker than from and basically they are the one at the previous Parag was maintaining that the workforce is going to scale. So basically, eventually, when it is going to hit 10 crore or so, the demand is going to also impact. And basically, in case if they are, the churn is less, and they are able to have, they are able to have maintain good health and maintain, a good being of themselves. They in the end will be able to, work well for the efficiency of the organization and for themselves and for the nation as such. So. My basic point is that why not to work for solutions for them also? Thanks very much.
I think we're only addressing that, right?
I think I would leave it to the panel to understand. I think the important point is that they are the face today of the
so the point is that why, so answer is very straight, that why these companies are giving loans or whatever to people who have a permanent job or regular job. The answer is very simple. So, but there are new companies and there are very many organizations now, fintech startups and fintech organizations, which are coming up with very good offerings and products for frontline workers and gig workers, like early wage access is one of them, and there are many, Yeah,
financial inclusion is an important point here that we're talking about.
I think what you're talking about is group insurances. So the general insurance space, there is a lot of room for group insurances. I'm very happy that Better Place is looking at that aspect. But even for the unorganized workers, normally when projects happen, it is mandatory for the contractors to take those insurances. So they cannot operate without insurances. So it is catered to. And it is, of course, now when the workforce is going to get more organized as groups, their ability to negotiate better rates for insurance will also grow. So we are on the journey, and I think it will get better for them.
Thank you. So that's a good question. I sensed a lot of angst there, but the angst is a good angst. See, you have to understand that in India, the biggest challenge that we actually have is that our economy, 70% is basically unorganized. When it comes to providing loans or any kind of financial assistance, essentially it's at the end of the day, it's a business. They are looking how will that particular amount of money make change in the target individual's life, and B, how am I going to get that money back? That's where data comes in. So if you see slowly and slowly with the economy coming in with Paytms and the other stuff, this data is becoming more and more mainstream. I'm sure that over a period of time, there will be a lot more credibility attached to these gig workers, if you want to call them, frontline workers, whatever you want to say. To your point, yes, there are multiple smaller outfits that are coming in that are providing a lot of credit systems, rating systems, which is there. I think this is just a transitionary phase. I think this will change. It's not going to change overnight, believe me, because it's a huge country. The people who are looking for that kind of assistance is huge. Definitely not happening overnight. But yes, the right steps have been taken, both, I think, from the government's point of view and also from the private players' point of view. And with this entrepreneurial environment that's coming in, there'll be more such things that will focus towards the bottom of the pyramid. Believe me, there are enough people in the industry who are very empathetic about the bottom of the pyramid. There is that empathy, and there is that will and drive to do something. So good angst, but I think that we will get there. We'll reach there somehow or the other. Yeah.
I think I was about to cover these points only. Basically, data will play a big role. So I'll just give an example of what's happening with the people that we are interacting with, our frontline workers. So one of the programs that we've launched is that these partners, after staying in our system for some time, actually can become owners of these vehicles, because that's one of the big challenges. The gig delivery economy is predominantly where the drivers are owning the vehicles, and that's how the system has been. Now, for someone like us, we have to actually give these vehicles to them on subscription, and that's where the risk and the asset heaviness for a startup like ours is something which becomes a challenge. So we started this program where we want these driver partners to become owners. And we started tying up with financing companies and new age financing companies, and the rejection rate was almost 80–85%. Almost all of these guys had defaulted on their payments. And the beauty of the new age startups, though the process is very simple, 5, 10, 15 minutes on the app, but if it's actually better not to have a CIBIL score. If you have a CIBIL score, that's where the problem starts. So these guys all have a CIBIL score because the payments come in the account, and they've all defaulted on their credit card payments. And then we went deeper into the understanding, and most of these guys actually don't want to work more than 15–20 days. That's it. Even if we tell them that there are incentives to work for 26 days, 28 days, these people stop working 15 days because they've earned 15,000 rupees and they go back. We are happy with it. So there were a lot of, so what we've been working with these startups, the fintech startups, is to look at softer elements. And basically we are securitizing a lot of things for them as an intermediary right now. So any guy who's worked with us for over a year and fits certain criteria, we are actually giving some form of guarantee that, and obviously the EMIs are going through us, and in that system they are getting the loans. So we are escrowing the EMIs, we are escrowing, we are giving the responsibility of the product that in case the defaults happen, and in that scenario, and then obviously the rate of loans there is much higher, and slowly now more data points are coming in, so things will improve hopefully, yes.
Yeah, hi. So first of all, I mean, kudos to the panel. Really, it's a very educational discussion. Really learned a lot just from this one thing. And I think Tarun gets credit also because the way he's asking questions is really phenomenal too. So I just wanted to touch upon the point, which was there right now. And that's about, as Prashant has pointed out, that as data builds up, then these things can come in. But let's put Pragati on the hotspot because organizationally and industry-wise you're from that thing. So is there any initiative which you know of inside your organization or organizations at your scale to address or to partner with people who are generating this kind of credit data, maybe small fintech startups? Are you going to become a consumer, or do you have a plan to consume this data to set up credit scores? Is there some vision of that right now happening?
Credit scores, I actually am not in the loop because I look after the trading bit of it, so I cannot on the business side of it. But yeah, we are partnering with smaller other aggregators as such, but particular related to the scores, I'm sorry, I would not have the information on that. My apologies for that.
Sure, of course.
Okay, hi. So good evening, I am Abhinav Shukla from SISL Infotech. So we are basically an IT-based company. So I have two questions. So what I understand that the frontline workers and the gig workers, they are completely different things. So the frontline workers are those who deals with directly with the customers, and gig workers are those who are short-term or contract basis workers. So I have two questions for both of them, like one question for each. So when we speak about the training for the frontline workers, so mostly the trainings are behavioral ones because they directly deal with the customers. So we need to train them on the behavioral skills, that how to deal with the customers. So is there any tool that we can quantify the training output? Like for hard skills, we know that we have multiple assessments that he has learned those skills. But for soft skills, are there any tools that can quantify that this is the output that is coming from the training? Basically the efficiency and effectiveness of the training, right? And for the gig workforce, how we can assure the flex, because they are not that much flexible as compared to the full-time workers. If I am supposed to go somewhere at 9 o'clock and I am the full-time worker for any company, I am bounded to go there. But for a worker who is there only for a certain time period or flexible or as a freelancer, so how we can assure that he should be retained for a longer period of time, and how we can ensure the flexibility of the timings? So these are two questions for both things.
Okay, so that's a very good question, because most people feel challenged as to how to measure soft skills. The biggest challenge is it is individual, it is different for each person, but there are certain tools which you can use to measure. For example, if you're measuring how many conversions a person has, you can look at the rate at which the number of customers he's approaching, prospects he's approaching, then you can find out where is he facing the challenge. If he's facing a challenge with the conversation, is it that, because it needs a little bit of deep dive into, is he not asking the right questions? Is he lacking in the product information? What is it that you need to enhance for him? So once you made that decision, you go, okay, is it a product challenge? Is knowledge of product challenge? Is it a process challenge? Or is it actually a skill challenge? So skill challenge, there are multiple methods. You can do case-based scenarios. You can do mock-ups with them, you can do practice sessions with them. Then a lot of times what also happens is their superiors go with them on calls. So it is OJT, which is like on-the-job training. Then we have small simulation-based programs where, you know, with a trainer, we put them through the basic concepts. Okay, when you're selling, there's a certain cycle which you need to follow. How do you prospect? How do you generate leads? How do you convert it? How do you negotiate better? So it's a step-by-step. Even within those soft skills, there is a step and there is a process to it. So if you define the process for them, probably the way they do it is individual, but following a process definitely brings you success. So I think that gap of understanding of where soft skills is a wide field where there is no system to be followed, no process. If we kind of follow the process, if you, without following a process, you've got success, great, because unintentionally you've been following certain processes. But when you have a conscious knowledge, if I do A, B, C, and we've seen that conversions for these people, vis-a-vis trained versus non-trained, the productivity goes up anywhere from 20 to 80%. So there is a huge case for training on these and measuring the productivity.
Renu, would you also like to share some insight?
I can only share that, you know, I was working in an organization which was into air conditioning, and we were using many technicians or people who set up your, you know, they come to your house, look for a window, they install your window ACs. And these are all workers, I won't call them gig workers, but they were at times working with 2 or 3 dealers as well. So that way they were gig, and they were also frontline workers because they were the one who were the first face of contact with the customers. So you go to a fancy, you know, dealership where the, you know, somebody who speaks to you is a MBA who's selling the window AC, and then next day you open your door and you find a worker who is at times very shabbily dressed, and then he would look at your window. He would ask you for the newspaper because your window is bigger, the AC size is smaller, or whatever. They would just put the newspaper there, stack it there, or break something here and there. And then we ran a lot of behavioral training programs for these people on, you know, how to ask the right questions, how to be presentable, and also some technical training was done. And then we only through the feedback of the customer, we could find a delta change. So this is also, I think, the way to, you know, find whether a training is working well or not. Yeah.
I have a question as well.
So last question, 5. You know, we're short of time here.
Yeah. So I actually want to talk about the, you know, the empathy at the, probably at the supervisory level, you know. So currently there are supervisors, you know, for the last bit, which is the frontline workers we are talking here. So how do you see the, you know, the balance between digitizing that layer versus how it is more manual right now? will digitizing that layer to making it more digital and, you know, not having bias by people help in, you know, the growth further?
Can you elaborate your question?
So basically, is the question something understood?
Can you try and...
Yeah, so I just want to talk about, you know, I just wanted to understand your viewpoint on, you know, digitizing the supervisory layer, you know, where people have biases probably in the, you know, in the warehouse industry. It could be about some kind of job allocation or, you know, even how their grievances are managed.
So a lot of time infant attrition or attrition is a direct contribution to the supervisor, you know, how he is having a preference in terms of onboarding or interacting. So what the question is there a way to digitize the supervisor, if I understand correctly, so that that bias can be mitigated?
Talking about is bias, you cannot eliminate bias. You can only create awareness that there is a bias and work to mitigate. Digitization cannot let go of bias, only awareness can. You need to get that, okay, there is a bias, because a lot of times those biases are not known to us. So unless you have that realization, okay, I have a certain bias, which I need to work on, change, the only change in behavior would happen is when it comes into your formal knowledge structure that I have a certain bias.
You done?
Yeah.
So that's a good question, but you're bringing two elements there. Like, one is the digitization. So I'll tell you one thing that probably it sounds like a motherhood statement, but the root cause of all problems anywhere in the world is economics and human behavior. These are the only two root causes. Technology has got nothing to do with it. So to Pragati's point, biases you can't remove. You can only be made more aware that there is a bias. Technology or digitization or whatever you actually want to call it can only help you remain within those particular guardrails that, okay, I don't need to do this, and there's only there's a limit to that. You can't actually, there are certain places, there are certain aspects of jobs and operations where completely digital work allocation cannot happen. So you will have a human element. So it's a classic case of people, process, and technology. So they combine together in order to provide a particular outcome. I don't think so that can be actually sorted through just digitization. I think it's both from the process, from the acknowledgement of human behavior, and supported by technology that you can overcome such hurdles, if that answers your question.
So where does bias play a negative role here? So if my manager is biased, so what will happen? He or she may give me a very poor rating in salary for appraisal. So I'll get a very low raise or zero raise. B, he's so biased or she is so biased that I can lose my job. C, he or she is so biased that, she will not give me my leaves. So I want to go for a wedding. She's saying, no, you have to come tomorrow. I'm saying, I'm sick. You have to come tomorrow. So these are 3 or 4 behavior patterns where you can see the bias in so prominent form. Generally, like you're talking about guards, we also have workers who are working in the premises of the customer, in plants. So there the customer's feedback plays a very important role. But what we have in our organization is a very robust system of complaints. We have complaint box. And we don't put the complaint box in the CCTV vicinity so that people don't, if I'm putting a complaint, I should not be captured putting a complaint. And we open the boxes very, very frequently. And we organize something called SCM, staff committee meetings, where we don't call the warehouse in charge. And people give complaints about their managers. So this is what we do. But I agree with you that awareness is one thing for biases, but I think we also make the workers speak for others also. For example, if I'm traveling in a bus and I'm eve-teased, say, one thing is I go and put a complaint, fine. But what about the bystanders? What is their role? They have to speak up, no? Similarly, I think the other workers also should be told to speak up and then approach the managers or maybe superiors. This is what we ask them during training, that stand up for your co-worker as well.
So the point I just want to add here is the effective, again, is teaching people how to communicate better. So silence versus spoken words, the words you speak and the language you use, everything. So communication is a lot of different aspects put together. So which is where I think it's one of the biggest changes you're going to be teaching in the future workforce is how to communicate effectively, clear, transparent, effective communication. That is the next training mantra. Yeah.
So yeah, I think important question. It's touched all of us at some point or the other in life.
Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, we'll have to call it a wrap. Thank you once again. Thank you panelists for such a great session. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Kakkar, Ms. Bora, Mr. Singh, and Mr. Mishra, and Mr. Kapoor for this wonderful session. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed for our next session, we'll take a quick break for 10 minutes. Refreshments are available in the dining area. Request you all to please help yourself. So this is a very short break. We have a cracking fireside chat or panel after this break. So let's proceed for the refreshments. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. We are about to start. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Request you all to please take your seats so we can proceed with the fireside chat. Request all to please take your seats so we can start our fireside chat. When we speak of a better future for the frontline workforce, we must acknowledge the positive impact of the technology. And to explore how tech can simplify the frontline employee life cycle, may I invite Mr. V. Krishnan, CHRO, Havells India, Mr. Anjali Brabbi, HR Director, G4S India, on stage, please. This session will be moderated by Mr. Tarun Sinha, CEO, Enterprise Business Better Place. Sir, request you to please come on the stage.
Good evening, everybody. I think a very invigorating day. Praveen spoke about the larger challenges and opportunities in the ecosystem, and Nilab very contextually threaded it into the panelists and the industries that they work in. And it is a known, right? Automation and technology, optimizing workforce efficiency. But I think where implementation ends, the bigger challenge or adoption starts, right? And for your industry specifically, the nuance is very different. The persona and the workforce is kind of decentralized, multiple locations, right? We have acceptance as a challenge. It's almost taken as policing, typically. The way he interacts with technology is also quite different and nuanced. So I think partners like us, industry, and employees have to come together to get in collaboration, not just end at implementation, but see how we can increase adoption, specific to the context of your industries, and I want to keep it at that. So if you look at the complete employee life cycle, right, the journey starts at the talent pool. You have IITIs, you have workforce, but it's a interesting challenge because as partners, we were also looking to solve it. Not only getting the right talent pool is a challenge, but a frictionless funnel. How do you bring it efficiency into that? And I want to bring you both into that question. And if you can talk about your specific industry and how are you managing that?
Well, thanks, Arun, for the opportunity. I know it's a Friday evening and a post-tea break session, so typically it's called a graveyard sessions, you know. So anyway, we'll try and make this as interesting as possible. Look, obviously we come from a classical brick and mortar industry, and 14 factories, three or more being developed, and but I think I'll try to correct some paradigms that we have. First of all, people need to understand that factories are changing now. They actually become more high-tech than many people realize, right? There's this huge drive on Industry 4.0. There is a lot of automation, digitalization, and all which is happening. And the workforce is also evolving. Unfortunately, in this country, we tend to, historically, we've been using this very socially regressive terms like, workmen, labor, So, which I think we have to also start moving away from that mindset, because that 20-year-old labor doesn't exist anymore. Okay? They are aspirational. They want to grow up the value chain. They are exposed to media. Their kids are more tech savvy if they are not. So I think as a society is evolving, we also need to evolve. That is a more fundamental, softer point of it. And because there is more tech coming into the system, capexes are increasing. And of course, by classical financial modeling of trying to find an ROI of that capex will never sustain. But people who should have the mindset to invest ahead of the curve, because it will pay you back in the long run, right? So therefore, the workforce demographics is also slowly changing, right? Like today, we are going beyond hiring ITIs, right?
Okay.
We are looking at a tier 2, tier 3 or tier 4 diploma holder.
Okay.
Because the kind of work I'll probably have going forward, he will be more aspirationally inclined to do it. He or she, right? And therefore, once you have a slightly more evolved, a person on the shop floor, your perspective also starts changing towards it, because so as far as costing this thing is concerned, what I'm going to say is probably in India, one big problem is our biggest solution to every problem is throw more manpower, right? Because that is the cheapest this thing you have, right? But with so much of capex coming, so much of tech coming, shop floors becoming more high tech, the sheer warm body count is going to come down. You will have more evolved people on the shop floor, right? And obviously, demand for these people is also high today, because everybody is getting into Industry 4.0 and this thing. I think analytics is getting a big space. You need somebody to make sense out of the data. And another huge revolution which is happening along with all this is women on shop floor, right? Like just to give you an example, we are setting up a state-of-the-art factory in Sri City in South. It's technically in AP, but very close to Chennai. So we are targeting 100% women on the shop floor, 100%, right? because we see a lot of business sense in doing that. Because, of course, what I'm going to say, a lot of guys may not like it, but women are more disciplined. They are more focused.
I would agree.
Okay. They invariably would work because they have to augment the income at home, because they want to build the standard of living of the family, give the kids a better education. Okay. So therefore, and there's also, in our kind of ecosystem, the women still happens to be the nucleus around which the house revolves, right? Whether we see that as a very regressive statement or a progressive statement, I don't want to get into it, but that is the reality. So therefore, at the end of the shift, she doesn't have time to stand outside the gate and smoke a BD and a gutka and gossip, because she doesn't have the time, right? And therefore, you won't have those kind of related IR problems also, right? She comes with a focused mind, she works, she does her job and goes, right? So from an efficiency, productivity, willingness to learn, wanting to build a career, stability, because there is a safe ecosystem, there is the learnability, there is the predictability of salary. So I think slowly I'm going to, if companies and factories are looking into the crystal gaze clearly, I clearly see women displacing guys in the shop floor going forward.
Lovely.
In huge numbers, actually. Right? It has already happened in South and West.
But do you see that as an actual stat in your organization?
Yes.
Because the aspiration is obviously to move 100.
Yeah.
And moving that 1% needle itself is a delta that brings in a lot of focus, right?
I mean, I'm not saying this because I belong to South, though I've been born and brought up in Delhi. That's not the bias I'm coming from. But in South and West, I would say women on shop floor numbers are significantly going up.
Sure.
North is yet to catch up, but the progress has started, right?
Great.
And especially in fine assembly, where we have made a lot of products which require a lot of hand dexterity.
Sure.
Okay, women do a much better job. Sure. Right. So I think these are some of the fundamental paradigm busting things that we need to understand. Sure. The demography of the shop floor is changing, education levels are changing, a lot of tech is coming in. Okay, capexes are going to increase, and hopefully the shop floor job is going to be not perceived as regressive as it used to be about 10-15 years ago.
Sure.
So therefore, when you going to have a more evolved ecosystem, you'll need to manage that ecosystem accordingly. So that's what the larger point I'm trying to make. Sure. Because our conventional lens and glasses through which we look at the shop floor needs to fundamentally start changing, because the change has begun.
Sure.
Okay.
Hold that thought. I'll have a follow-up question on that. What about your ecosystem, facilities management, guards, housekeeping? How do you manage your funnel for talent pool, and what are you seeing as opportunities and challenges where technology can help you, and is that still unsolved? That could also be a probability.
So thank you. But before I really answer, I want the audience to give a big round of applause to Better Place for bringing some serious discussions on blue-collar workforce. We all talk about high-tech employees, we talk about managers, leaders, but very rarely do you see a forum which is generally talking about the blue-collar workforce. And trust me, the problem, I've been here for around a couple of hours now, the issue almost remains the same. Everybody is talking about the same set of problems, same issues that they're struggling with, and that's what we are trying to do. And there's a phenomenal amount of learning I personally have had through this session. And I think Krishnan has given a great start. He has taken a very, very strategic outlook towards the future and given some insights for a lot of people to really look at issues. Just to strengthen his point, we have a factory. I represent a company called G4S, which is one of the largest security company in the country and globally also. We have around 100,000 plus people in the country. We have been here in the country for more than 30 years, and we have various businesses. Security, facilities, technology are some of the businesses that we are into. We also have a factory in Faridabad, which is only dedicated to manufacture uniform and protective personal equipment for my employees all across the country. The point to note is, despite being in North, so this is a kind of example for us, I have 90% of the workforce which is in the factory, which is women. So we have a case study. The factory has been going for a very, very long time, and it has been doing very well for us. And with return to work, of course, the pressure on us to hire people have really gone up. Now, before I really get into the solution aspect of recruitment or finding that talent, let's understand what are the problems that we are grappling with as a company. I'm really not talking about at a universal level or for a blue-collar worker. I'm talking about pure our problems. One, I have to go to a lot of migration is happening from rural areas to metro cities. And therefore, I need to find these people who are, where are they in these pockets, pick them up. And I also need to go to rural areas to pick these people up. So that's problem statement number one. Even in the metro cities, we have issue of there are certain pockets where cost of living is very high, and therefore, to get people in those areas is very, very difficult for us. For example, a high-tech city in Hyderabad is a classic example. For example, I was talking to him about his factory. He said, I have a factory in Nimrana and we are not able to get we have a very high level of absenteeism. The problem for us is that I have state of Haryana, I have state of Rajasthan. They are adjacent to each other. And at the border, the minimum wages differ. So therefore, wherever the minimum wage is higher, people tend to fly over there. So that's the second kind of problem that we are really grappling with. The third set of problem that we are kind of grappling with is the kind of diversity that we are looking at. So there are a lot of companies which are demanding diverse workforce, people who are differently abled, people who are transgenders, people who are, and we need to really, on the run, find solutions, policies around these things. For example, how do I address them? How do I mark the gender in the database? How do I provide restroom to them? How is the locker facility to these people? So these are very, very trivial issues that we face. So these are some of the big problems that we are kind of grappling with. And of course, when I'm providing security, this company provides security, I need to ensure that I've done their documentation, their criminal tests, criminal verification, their proof of address, their where do they come from, all the documentation has to be really, really checked. Now, these are some of the issues which, is a problem, and there are solutions to it. So there are companies like Apna, there is a company like Google Jobs, there is, Facebook and LinkedIn, which helps me to do a very targeted promotion of certain roles and jobs that we are requiring. So that's how it is getting solved. There are third party or a lot of companies like Mr. Krishnan was talking about return on investment. So we have also invested something on our own. So we get all the databases from different places together. We put them for a particular location, process them, and use them. There are a large number of people who we need to filter out. So there are automatic dialers that we are using to get elicit response whether they're interested in the job or no. There are a lot of need for us to communicate very effectively what is the compensation you're getting, what is the benefit you're getting, and that they understand. So there's a lot of work which is happening, leveraging technology to really communicate to them this is what we require. And of course, there are companies like Better Places who are really kind of helping us to do onboarding on the social security system, PFESIC. Few months back or a couple of years back, it was a nightmare for all the companies who are having blue-collar workforce to really onboard them because you need to seed in the Aadhaar to PAN and so on and so forth, and therefore there was a struggle. You need to get the ESIC card that used to be a nightmare. So they are helping us. So these are some of the things which is happening in technology, which is helping us to get the funnel together, which is helping us to process these people and then kind of provide them to our customers wherever they're required.
Interesting. That very well answers my question. So coming back to a specific question for you, Krishnan. You're changing the talent pool, right? You talked about ROI, productivity. When Krishnan sits in the morning, starts his day, right? And then multiple pieces coming together, educating the guy, making him adopt technology, multiple factories, decentralized. What is your leading and lagging indicator? What is that you need in this analytics dashboard that makes you comfortable in the morning that I know I'm heading in the right direction? Because there are multiple facets to it. So what is that help and tool you need in the morning, or do you already have that actually says that I'm moving in the right direction while I have multiple moving parts?
A couple of things. You start the day, though I'm no longer very directly associated with the factories now, but one of the first things I ask my colleague who handles manufacturing HR is very rudimentary thing. Manning kitni hai? If I have 14 factories and there are 3 shifts to run, broadly, line by manning, manpower puri hai ki nahi hai? Because the line won't start.
Agreed.
Right? And the last thing you want to hear from the plant head or this thing is that manpower nahi hai, isliye aaj production nahi hua. So I mean, it's very rudimentary. That's where you begin from. Then of course it has other nuances like are there levers in place? And typically your third shift is a pain. And that's one more thing I must tell you, that the new younger generation which is coming to the workforce, even in factories, they don't want to work in night shifts. Okay, they because of COVID, awareness of health and wellness has significantly gone up, right? And there are people who very clearly say कि A और B तो मैं कर लूँगा, मैं C नहीं करूँगा. ठीक है,
ओवरटाइम के बावजूद
ओवरटाइम जो भी देना है दे दो यार, मैं नहीं करूंगा. I have a work-life balance to look at, and I am not interested in doing this.
So that's a shift in priorities.
That's a significant shift. I am telling you this.
Across the value chain.
Yeah. So that is one. Yeah. So coming back to your question on dashboard, manning is one. Do I have cover for the levers? Third shift manning. Then in India, we are such a socio-culturally diverse thing. There are multiple things. Holi mein you'll have a problem. Diwali you'll have a problem. Harvesting season you'll have a problem. Okay? Then so if there's a big rally, election, many of them will go for those kind of things. So there are a lot of this event-based absenteeism which happens. So now we have learnt it.
So do you create a bench and a funnel that you can see that fill just in time?
Yeah. So what we have started doing is Shadi season, Sai as we call it. So there's a mass migration which happens. People will not come. So over a period of time, you calendarized all this, blips. And of course, we keep a buffer, like either you use your apprentice. This thing, the government also now give you the neem, sheem, and all that kind of thing.
True.
We leverage all that. And also, what we try to do is that you use a mix of local crowd and migrant crowd. Because if you use too much of migrant crowd, then you'll suffer all these problems. Okay? If you use too much of local crowd, then you also have a problem of political interference and unions and all that. So you need to use a very judicious mix.
Yeah.
And that is where we also feel that typically we've seen that women are less prone to if they're not going to come, they'll tell you in advance. If they come, they'll do a full day job, right? So it's a complicated dashboard, with about 14 factories with multiple kind of products. We have 10,000 SKUs.
Right.
So it is a complex nightmare.
Exactly. That's where I was coming from. How do you start?
Okay. So it's not easy, but I think we have over the period of time learned automation, another thing. Try to minimize on critical this thing, how much of robotization, this thing, etc. And so that your dependence on manpower, it is on critical operations, comes down.
Sure.
That's where capex is and automation and all. So it's a combination of many things. But there are too many moving parts.
I would agree. Only my next question. Yeah, I think like I said, decentralized, very similar persona.
Yeah.
And threading it further, when we talk about productivity, decentralized workforce, and we've also realized, and we've done projects for IFM industry, the way he interacts with an app is also very different, right? For example, if it's a guard, the minute you go verbose, you lose his span of attention. Anyway, he's thinking you're policing him, what is this app and what are they trying to do? Will they get all my data? And so you have to have pictorial tiles. So how are you managing constant skilling for him to do his job better? Now, for example, the right mix when it's housekeeping and the cleaning chemicals, right? How do you manage that when they're so distributed? Are we still doing managed service? Do we have trainers on the ground, or have we evolved?
So this is a problem which has not been solved. So
okay.
I must accept. And a lot of issues we are trying to grapple and we are trying to solve. And as we solve one, we move to the next one, and as we move to the next one, we go to the third one. So what we have done, we have institutionalized a lot of our processes.
Okay.
And G4S in India and globally works very strongly on processes. And as I said, that we have been here for more than 30 years in this country, more than 100 years globally. So these processes have evolved for us. So a continuous learning process, a continuous training process is something that we have right from the time we tell the person that you're going to join G4S, whether in housekeeping or in man guarding. We start training them very, very strongly. And we have kept largely more physical in nature. So we will get them to, we have 29 training centers all across the country. We will get them into our training center. We will keep them for 12 days, 13 days, which will be the pure classroom and experience-based learning that will happen. And then they'll go on the site and they'll do 9 to 10 days of training on the site. So that's how we ensure that we train people, because they are unskilled or semi-skilled when they come to us. And therefore, it's very important for us to really teach them, like something we were talking about in the last, how to talk to the customer, how to welcome a guest. If you're in the reception, how do you welcome? If you're at the main gate, how do you check? So there are a lot of nuances which is required at different levels of job. If you're in the reception, you have to be very good in greeting. So, and your language has to be very, very soft. Whereas at the main gate, it could be a little more harsher. So these are the things we need to really train. And then once they are on the job, there is a continuous training that we do. We have something called as toolbox talks, so which we release and then they are delivered to the people. And then we use technology to see whether they have been delivered or not. Because we have, 12,000 sites all across the country, and then how do we ensure that 12,000 sites, my 110,000 people have been reached in terms of being communicated what I want to communicate. So we follow it a very, very rigorous process of ensuring that things are delivered, they are audited, they are checked, and then we take the feedback from the customers to find out how things are moving or not moving. So those are some of the things we do.
Very relevant question. So it's more or less a managed service, and we are running this project with one of the largest retailers in this country, where it's as nuanced as how much of a difference does the refrigerator has to be from the wall for it to not break down. And there's one part of the organization that's completely managed and think it's perfect. And we are kind of advocating a hybrid model, because we have to reach people fast also. I mean, train the trainers, technology and managed service as a mix, but very relevant points. And I think this is one problem solving that we're trying to solve for, and we'll exchange notes later further on that. So maybe I get more philosophical when I talk to you, but a very generalist question. So while technology is solving for a lot, and there are some problem statements that still keep you awake at night and say, I have a lot of partners in the market. I have a very distributed, complex workforce. I need an analytics dashboard. Where is that one pain point, Krishnan, that you still feel that nobody in the ecosystem has come back to me with the solution, and it kind of keeps me a little awake at night?
Look, a very motherhood problem that we have is, unfortunately, people even today, while I see changes happening in the demographics and the shop floor, unfortunately the talent, especially the slightly more educated talent, they don't perceive a shop floor job to be, for want of a better word, as cool or aspirational. We have, I think in my last more than 3 decades, I don't think I have hired any IIT or top tier institute guy for any shop floor work. Sure. Even I used to work in an automotive company like Eicher. Okay, so if you start going to tier 2, you're going to start going to tier 3. We run a GT program. Right. So one is the leadership and cerebral manpower to get them on the shop floor is a huge challenge. If you get them, they don't stay also, because unlike during say my time, there are much more options. They would either do coding for 2 years, do his MS or MBA and move out of the country, or or would rather do something else and land up in an e-commerce company, or So shop floor is in the Maslow's hierarchy of this thing. It doesn't even figure. So getting quality talent into the shop floor, even diploma holders, getting a good diploma holder is not easy to do. Right? So we constantly struggle at the supervisory and managerial and leadership level. Am I able to grow plant heads from within, like which used to happen say 15, 20 years ago? No way.
Okay.
Because nobody has the patience, right?
By the time we reach the stage, he's already tried
branched
it.
out.
Branched
I have
out.
enough and more people, even though GT route people, दो तीन साल की बहुत shop floor में बहुत सीख लिया है. मुझे materials में कुछ दे दो, मुझे supply chain में, adjunct functions, supply chain में कुछ दे दो, or things like that. But so nobody wants to be branded as a guy of the factory. I think unlike say the more developed economies in the West, etc., there is too much of social taboo still in our society about a guy who does a office job and a factory job. And I think that emanates in the way we deal with people, the way we talk to people. I think that if you ask me what keeps me awake, this is my biggest problem. Getting good talent across plant head, plant HR head, plant commercial guy. Which CA wants to do a commercial guy in a factory? He doesn't want to do it.
And I was just thinking, and very relevant point, your organization has cracked the marketing code, right? I mean, the brand is, and your employer brand, from what I hear from you, that aspiration to come and join, and we had this huge campaign where you were saying for the Air Force people that how you're helping them. You're in every household, right? Everything that goes into every fan and me sleeping peacefully at night with an air conditioner, maybe that employer brand thrust and creating that storyline around your employee and how it's what you're giving back to society and what you're manufacturing, like the Hindalco campaign that we're in every second can. Yeah. Maybe that's something you could think about, right?
Yeah, we are doing that. Look, deep into every home is our tagline.
Yeah.
But so what we are trying to do at that
I'm talking on the employee side, for example.
One is we are trying to break the paradigm that, why are you so obsessed that the production manager should be a graduate engineer trainee?
True.
But it was good to have this philosophy 20 years ago.
Agreed.
Right now, today if a diploma holder has come and he's become a line in charge, a section in charge, and he shows the sparks of becoming a production manager, why would you hold the academic degree against him? Because we still live in a lot of this baggage, historical baggages of the past, and so slowly, one has to start moving out of some of these beliefs. Why are you so obsessed about my plant commercial head should be a CA? ICW ले लो अगर नहीं है तो I mean even if he's a MCOM CA intern, how does it matter? He's not going to sign a balance sheet, right? You need somebody who somewhere it also move into horses for courses, right? So I think we are, and what we are also trying to drive a lot of young talent program. Like we have got a DT program, we got a GT program, we got a PGT program. So there's a lot of huge young talent, ecosystem we are trying to create. Show them career paths, and frankly, if a GT after 2-3 years says I want to come to materials, I want to go to supply chain, be open to it. How does it matter?
Agreed.
Just because a guy in supply chain, I need a guy with an MBA operations. Not required, no?
Agreed.
I mean, give him a chance. How does it matter?
Fair.
Right?
Agreed.
So, as long as we don't stick to very classical molds of this guy, this academic, this role, I think the world has become too fluid, and therefore one needs to have a slightly more you have to learn to manage by situations and scenarios.
Expand.
Rather than being very dogmatic about your beliefs.
Yeah.
I think you have to constantly challenge your beliefs and unlearn and relearn.
Right. Agreed.
That's what I would say.
My last concluding question for both of you, and both of you already spoke about it, is diversity and inclusion, and it's really reassuring to hear and invigorating that you're already doing enough and more around it. But the challenge doesn't just end when you say that we aspire to go to 100%. And we had Praveen speak about in the morning, we partnered with somebody to actually collaborate with industry. How do we facilitate those delta and that percentage actually moving? It doesn't end there also. Like Praveen was talking about 3% women employment in this ecosystem. There's differently enabled also, right? And out of the 3 crore differently enabled people in India, some 34 lakhs today have a job. Now, while we are all collaborating between industries and partners to bring this gap down, there's a big challenge on matchmaking. So for example, if you look at differently enabled, there's a large partner that we work with, and for deaf and hearing impaired, they only give under the roof jobs because they are matching a capability. I would call it a capability. I would not say an non-capability to the right. How do you manage that while you're aspiring? And how do you do that matchmaking while you're wanting to move that delta, but it's not that simple? That this is for both of you. This is my concluding question, yeah.
Look, frankly, I'll be very frank. On the differently abled talent, we haven't moved the needle much.
Okay.
For simple reason that people who have, say, genetically or born with challenges like, hearing impaired or, because one is a lot of our assemblies and these things have a certain safety dimension to it, right? So there is a concern around that, Of course, if you get, and in a factory environment, there are very limited standalone IC. You can have a quality inspector kind of a guy who's in a lab and checking something. So there are limited. We have done some very baby steps in terms of people who have their sensorials in place, but they may have physical challenges or something. So we have made some baby steps around it. But still a long way to go. I mean, we are first trying to crack the gender diversity code first. We see a lot of merit and value in it. I think this will. We have made some baby steps, but nothing very significant. I must very honestly.
One example I can give you, and taking a point out of the same client we was talking about. For example, packers, right? The assembly line where actually you pack, you can actually get folks in. What about you, Mandeep, in your specific space, your persona, your ecosystem?
So we have started talking about it.
Okay.
We have made this as a part of our agenda, that this is something that needs to be done. And when we do converse about these things, we want to do it as a matter of belief, and we want to do it as a matter of the future direction. Of course, the first step is how do you really build a reason that why we should do it. And I think we have worked extensively, and we realize that the marketplace that we are going to serve in future is going to be more appreciative of these diversities. And the diversity does not only mean transgender or a gender or gender non-conformist or something as simple as those who are in transition. So you have to really look at various kind of aspects of diversity that may exist. And once you realize that the world is going to be more sensitive, the world is going to be more tolerant, the world is going to be more appreciative, and the world is going to recognize this diversity far more seriously than what it is doing today, you will have a case in point. And therefore, at the customer side also, you will have these kind of people who will need to address. And as an organization, if you're not ready, you wouldn't be able to really address the customer sets. So what we have started, so one is the conversation around it. So all our leadership globally are involved, and they make a case in point and explain it to the leadership team why it is important and how we are going to do it. The second thing is to really work with our partners and customers to create policies, because unless you have policies around each of these aspects, you will find it very difficult to implement. Because like I talked about, which restroom to use and what kind of leaves would you give? Something as simple as this, as trivial as that, has to be really thought about. How are you going to put in the database? What gender do you address people with? How would you ensure that when the person comes on the shop floor or comes to the environment, he's not being ridiculed or made fun of? What are the sensitization program are you going to learn? So we have started making policies. We have started making experiments with few of our customers to really look at this diversity at a broader level, and then experiment and learn and make mistakes and learn more and make changes, and that's what we are trying to do. And I guess it's a long journey ahead of us, but it is the future, and it's very important for all the corporates and people, all of us, to really start appreciating, recognizing, and start working towards it.
Superb. I mean, it's always enriching to be with the panel that in brick and mortar and traditional is having such progressive thoughts. Really refreshing, guys. And to conclude, I mean, from hire to, I would say, not retire, to rehire, at every cycle, I think what the panel has advocated, remove your blinders, start experimenting, increase your horizons. There are a lot of solutions that are available. Some will be solved by technology, some will be solved by a hybrid model. And I think that's the future. It's like somebody spoke about empathy, somebody spoke about how we can improve the productivity on the shop floor. But it's a marriage where all three partners have to come together to actually constantly improvise and learn, unlearn, relearn, right? So I think, thank you, both of you, for an amazing session. And I would want to now open it to questions from the audience, and we would really encourage that. And over to the audience.
My question is for you, sir. From a policy standpoint, if you can throw a little bit of light of how are you working on policies, and what are the challenges you are at the moment foreseeing on policy formation, as well as how you tackling them? Any
specific policy or overall policy?
It's okay. So
the diversity.
Yeah,
okay,
diversity
sure,
policy.
okay,
So
sure.
we have made, what you do, you immerse yourself and think through what could be the issues. You discuss with people what could be the issues. You speak, do a focus group with the people who are going to be, you are going to provide these policies to. So you make some policies and then you systemize it, and then you talk to your customer, these are the policies that we are now going to have, and then you implement it, and before implementation you are actually sensitizing people who are going to be working with them. It's very, very important. So you do that, you put some people in place, then you learn, again you get back after some time, maybe 6 months or so, and see what's going right, what's going wrong, and then again you make. So those are the few things that we have been doing for the past couple of years to really progress on this journey. The point that I want to make that, it's very important for all of us to have a character for our organization. And that character has to be driven by courage and sustainability. So you need to take certain tough calls. This is how it's going to be. For example, for us, health and safety or diversity today is very, very important thing. Ethical conduct is very, very important thing. And you keep on ensuring, and whenever there is a test, you ensure that you pass the test with the passing marks, so with the flying colors. And once you sustain this over a period of multiple years, you really build that kind of character. And once you build the character, it's very easy to move from the top layer to the bottom layer or vice versa. So everybody sustains and conducts themselves in a similar fashion all across. So that's what we have been able to build. And I'm sure that now that we've started the journey on diversity, it will take time, but eventually we'll be there. Because we have that character and that courage and determination and to sustainability to really build it up. Yeah.
You want to add something to that, Krishna? No.
Look, I'll just make a very, not specifically to what he was saying. My life experience about policies has been, people, miss the spirit for the words, right? Because the moment you put a policy and a framework, there's one group of people trying to figure out how do I fit into that policy, and another group it doesn't fit into are in the trip of trying to challenge that policy, right? So policies, I don't think really they should be seen more as guidelines. I think the larger issue is the organization and the people at large understand the spirit behind that policy, and are you consistent with that spirit? So I mean, give a very classic different example. We are a brick and mortar company. I mean, I have thousands of people on the shop floor. I have equal number of people on the field, either selling or servicing. How do I implement hybrid working? Shall I do it for this elitist, minuscule people who sit in head offices and regional offices? Not possible, right? So therefore, I refuse to be part of all this very esoteric thing about future of work and hybrid and all that. Because at the end of the day, my large part of my population cannot work hybrid. And it is absolutely nonsensical to expect an elite group to be sitting in office and saying, we have flexi, we have this thing. It doesn't work. So therefore, can I build a policy around it? I cannot. So you handle it case to case, but ensure your spirit and your science of decision remains constant. So that's my generic approach on policies.
I would completely echo that with both of them, and it's deja vu. Mona is sitting there, she leads HR for us, and we were having the same conversation yesterday. One beyond that, do the people believe in the ethos of the policy? Is it communicated enough? Have they even signed off on it, and are they your partners in it? And then the third part is the policy is just a document. Are we executing it in ethos, right? Are we measuring it? We have earned leaves. Are we encouraging people to take leaves? Or is it just that they're accumulating? So I think it's a journey, and it's multiple facets. Vikram, you're not allowed to ask questions. Just kidding. On a lighter note. Continue. You were going to ask something, right? Okay. I'm just kidding.
It's Friday evening, we understand.
Yeah, we're keeping you away from your drinks and your dinner, so completely, and it's Friday, weekend away. Any more questions, guys?
I think people have gotten to TGIF mode.
Thank God it's Friday. Great. Awesome.
Great, I think we can
conclude. Yeah. Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krishnan, Mr. Ravi, and Mr. Sinha for sharing your thoughts on such an important topic. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are excited to present to you our latest solution that would help organizations like yours to improve your productivity. Hiring is always a difficult process. All the more, it is very important in the frontline workforce industry. So here's a glimpse of our latest module, Hire ATS.
Do you hire frontline workers regularly? Do you have a tough time managing multiple vendors in different locations with Excel files? Is the whole process slowing you down to achieve your business goals? At Better Place, we understand the challenges organizations like you face on a daily basis. And we are here to enable your growth and empower your people. Introducing Hire ATS, a platform to manage hiring digitally at scale and speed. Manage multiple vendors, customize your hiring process, and improve candidate engagement all on a single platform. Sounds interesting? Let's see how it works. With Hire ATS, you can completely digitalize and automate your hiring process with features like resume passing, auto screening, video uploads, online skill assessments, and many more. You can also customize each step of your hiring process as per your business needs. And manage complete candidate application funnel with our digital applicant tracking system. With inbuilt candidate engagement features, you can increase conversions and reduce your hiring cost by 20%. Gain one-click access to smart analytics to understand your funnel metrics and individual vendor performance. Visibility and control isn't an issue any longer. Wait, there is more. The Hire ATS platform is fully integrated with more workforce management modules like Onboard, Verify, and Upskill. Now isn't that super easy and efficient? Hire ATS, the perfect solution for all your frontline workforce hiring needs. Hire faster, hire better with Better Place.
I now request Mr. Agarwala to come on stage and share a few words on our latest module, Hire ATS.
Thank you. Thank you for the fantastic video. And since it's our company, I have to always say thank you. I just wanted to share with you, this is an example of how we develop along with our customers. The first idea came from BigBasket a few years back. We co-developed along with them, thanks to Tanuja and the entire team of BigBasket who helped us design, think about it. But the idea is to solve your problem, like Andalip said a while back, and as well as Krishnan. The biggest problem is that where are the people, right? How do we hire? There's a technology that can be used to reach out to your people. You might be having data of 100,000 people to hire 1,000 people, but who are the 1,000 people that you should reach out to? Can technology help you in that process? And we have built not only the solution from UI interaction point of view, but a lot of analytics behind it. If you have to hire a person in Dibrugarh, in Kanpur, in Gurgaon, who is the right person that you should reach out to? What is the longevity of that person that you like to have? What is the attrition forecasting that you can do? This is what we have built to solve the problem of hundreds of people that you hire every day, because that's a perennial problem that we all live with, unfortunately. But hope this solves your problem. We would love to engage with you, love to learn more from you and how we can make it better. And thank you so much for adopting in advance. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Praveen. Well, it has been a wonderful evening tonight with the next step, becoming the platform to exchange ideas on how to better the frontline workforce ecosystem. I would like to thank all the speakers for sharing their ideas. Let us pledge to work towards creating an equitable and efficient future for our frontline workers and enterprises. So let us take the next step. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Mr. Vikram Bhaskar, CPO Enterprise Business Better Place, to propose the vote of thanks. Can I invite Mr. Bhaskar on stage, please? Thank you. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be present in this December audience and soak in the valuable views that have come our way during the course of the evening. At Better Place, this was our endeavor with the next step to bring the most minds in the frontline ecosystem to discuss the challenges that still plague us and prospective solutions that could help the manage and life cycle of workers' Better Place. I would like to believe we have made an encouraging start. Let me start with acknowledging our panelists who have helped bring out core issues that are impending the digital transformations and adoption journey in the frontline segment. The discussions were intense, insightful, and thought-provoking. I'm sure we all agree that at the heart of it, addressing the issues of an individual worker, that will be the key to solution some of the most pressing issues in the frontline workforce management today. Thank you, Ms. Pragati Kakkar, Ms. Renu Bohra, Mr. Prashant Mishra, Mr. Tanveer Singh, for sharing your adopt to the changing workforce with the trends like technology, workforce, aspirations, diversity in the Bangalore world. How in your own capacities you have innovated in process and business models with, say, robotics in operations, early wage access, manager effectiveness, and empathy and upskilling. And thank you, Mr. Krishnan and Mr. Anlib Reddy. All the business leaders in the audience, it's been a real pleasure to host you. While we had a string of conversations tonight and you heard our distinguished guests, each one of you is dealing with a multitude of challenges with distributed workforce. Thank you once again for taking out time from your busy schedule and joining us here. We hope to keep the dialogue ongoing in the evening. Join us for the cocktail and dinner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar. So that concludes the NCR edition of The Next Step, a Better Place initiative. We hope you enjoyed the evening. Once again, on behalf of the Better Place family, I thank you for all the active participation and support in making this event a success. We look forward to your continued association with Better Place. You may now proceed to the dining area and enjoy the food and beverages. Thank you and good night.